The Battle of the Little Bighorn, which took place on June 25, 1876, stands as one of the most significant victories for Native Americans in the annals of American history. This confrontation involved General George Armstrong Custer's 7th Cavalry Regiment clashing with a substantial coalition of Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors. Among the many fierce native fighters who participated in the battle, one warrior's legend depicts an extraordinary and fearsome war chief who instilled fear even in the most experienced soldiers. In the rich history surrounding the Little Bighorn, two Native American figures are particularly prominent: Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. Sitting Bull primarily served as a spiritual leader and strategist. Prior to the battle, during a Sundance ceremony, he experienced a vision in which numerous soldiers fell upon the Lakota camp like grasshoppers, a prophecy interpreted as heralding a significant victory. While he was recuperating from self-inflicted wounds sustained during the Sundance, Sitting Bull did not engage directly in the combat. Instead, he concentrated on motivating the warriors and organizing the camp. In contrast, Crazy Horse emerged as the principal tactical leader on the battlefield. Native narratives consistently commend Crazy Horse for his bravery and effectiveness, particularly in leading charges that encircled, overwhelmed, and ultimately annihilated Custer's forces. However, it was neither Sitting Bull nor Crazy Horse who history recalls as the most fearsome native warrior from the Battle of the Little Bighorn. That distinction is attributed to a man whose name instilled terror in both his adversaries and his own people. Accounts from both Native and U.S. Army sources characterize him as a warrior of tremendous physical strength and an almost supernatural ferocity in combat. His visage, adorned with war paint and a chilling, fixed stare, was said to instill dread in soldiers even before he brandished a weapon. To many Lakota, he represented a thundercloud looming ominously at the periphery of the battlefield. To the U.S. Army, he embodied something far more sinister, a tangible manifestation of a boogeyman, a man who fought not only with valor, but with brutal, unyielding hatred. His name was Rain in the Face. Born in the early 1830s near the confluence of the Cheyenne River in present-day South Dakota, he belonged to the Hunkpapa Lakota tribe. As a young boy, he was raised in an environment where the future of a young Lakota male was closely linked to attributes such as bravery, agility, and proficiency. Like many boys of his era, he learned to ride horses almost before he could walk. He acquired the skills to track deer through tall grass, to remain silent while sleeping, and to withstand hardships without complaint. His first bow was merely a child's toy. His second bow, however, was a true hunter's weapon. By the time he reached his teenage years, he had likely embarked on his vision quest, a significant rite of passage involving fasting, isolation, and a search for communion with the spirit world. During his childhood, he was known by a different name, one that has been obscured by over a century and a half of history. He earned the name by which we now recognize him during a confrontation, possibly a skirmish with a Crow war party or a raid into enemy territory. Native accounts suggest he returned from battle with his face marked by streaks of blood and water. Some claimed it was his own blood, mingled with the cold rain that had fallen that day. Others argued it was the blood of his adversaries, delineated by the weather into sharp lines, resembling war paint. An elder warrior witnessed him and bestowed upon him the name Ite Omagazu, which translates to rain in the face. Among the Lakota, names were not merely decorative. They were declarations of identity. Once acquired, they held significant power, and this name suited him as if it were a second skin. Rain in the Face was a name that was not only remembered, but also instilled fear. From that point onward, he was no longer just a boy with a bow. He had transformed into a man whose name would soon resonate across the plains. By the mid-1860s, Rain in the Face had already gained notoriety. He was likely involved in Red Cloud's War from 1866 to 1868, particularly in assaults on forts such as Fort Philip Kearny, where the Lakota and their allies successfully resisted the construction of the Bozeman Trail. Some accounts indicate that he may have participated in the Fetterman Fight of 1866. Although his precise role remains unclear, his presence on the Powder River during this time suggests otherwise. In the 1870s, Rain in the Face also participated in the Battle of Handsinger Bluff in 1873, which took place near the Yellowstone River. It was during this confrontation with Custer's forces that he reportedly killed Dr. John Hansinger and the more subtle Augustus Spillane. He was subsequently apprehended for these murders by Captain Thomas Custer, the younger brother of George Custer, who was said to have personally supervised the shackling of Rain in the Face at Fort Abraham Lincoln. According to Rain in the Face, Tom Custer physically assaulted him while he was restrained and confined him in a desolate room with only a thin blanket throughout the harsh winter months. This experience was both torturous and degrading, and Rain in the Face never forgot the humiliation. Before long, he managed to escape the fort and spent the following days consumed by thoughts of revenge. That revenge would manifest in the summer of 1876 during the Battle of the Little Bighorn. The battle itself represented the violent culmination of years of tension and betrayal. The United States government, driven by manifest destiny and the conviction that westward expansion was a divine right, pushed further into indigenous lands. Treaties were established only to be broken with cynical precision. In 1851, the Fort Laramie Treaty was enacted to maintain peace between the Plains tribes and the influx of immigrants traveling along the Oregon Trail. It delineated extensive territorial boundaries for the Lakota, Cheyenne, Arapaho, and other indigenous groups, yet it was disregarded almost immediately. Settlers encroached upon protected lands, railroads cut through buffalo ranges, and the government did little to intervene. The Treaty of Fort Laramie was renewed in 1868, promising the Lakota Sioux exclusive rights to the Great Sioux Reservation, which included the Black Hills, a site of profound spiritual importance. These rights were intended to endure as long as the grass grows, and in exchange, the Lakota were to remain on the reservation and halt hostilities against settlers. However, in 1874, an expedition led by Custer uncovered gold deposits in the Black Hills. Almost immediately, prospectors, miners, and settlers inundated the area. Instead of removing the intruders, the federal government attempted to purchase the land from the Lakota. When Sitting Bull and other leaders declined to sell, the U.S. government labeled all non-reservation individuals as hostile and mandated their return to designated agencies by January 31, 1876. Unsurprisingly, many chose not to comply. Instead, they congregated in what was estimated to be the largest native encampment ever seen on the plains. Thousands of men, women, and children settled near the Little Bighorn River in southeastern Montana. On July 25, 1876, the 7th Cavalry entered this camp. George Custer led over 600 men in an aggressive maneuver aimed at trapping and disbanding the native forces. Overconfident in his own capabilities and dismissive of native strength, Custer divided his regiment into 3 separate columns with the intention of striking swiftly and preventing the natives from escaping. However, he failed to recognize that the camp was not merely a small group of fugitives. It was a formidable and well-prepared fighting force. As Custer's column approached from the east, warriors surged out of the encampment, not in retreat, but in a counterattack. The battle erupted abruptly and with great violence. Custer and his immediate contingent of approximately 210 men found themselves isolated and significantly outnumbered. Warriors on horseback, led by figures such as Crazy Horse, Two Moons, and Rain in the Face, executed a series of rapid assaults. The scene was filled with swirling dust, screams, gunfire, and the thunder of hooves as Custer's men were quickly overwhelmed. The soldiers attempted to establish defensive positions along a ridge now known as Last Stand Hill.